Sure, that's good.
Coffee houses, clubs, and neon lights. I rock the people my way. Working my way, coming back to you. Working my way, coming back. Take me home tonight, not wasting any time. Highway 95, engines on overdrive. From town to town, and in between, I see you in the morning light. New York, Boston, Philadelphia, LA. I still see your face. Buses roll, distance grows, but I remember you're just a dream away. Working my way, coming back to you. Working my way, coming back. Take me home tonight, not wasting any time. Highway 95, engines on overdrive. From town to town, and in between, I see you in the morning light.
Let's put it on locals already. Did you see they were like, I agonized over who to make what? And they were like, yo, you should have made more of the green shit, yo. And then somebody was like, oh, you know somebody green somewhere with all the green.
Take me home tonight, not wasting any time. Highway 95, engines on overdrive. From town to town, and in between, I see you in the morning light. Take me home tonight, not wasting any time. Highway 95, engines on overdrive. From town to town, and in between, I see you in the morning light. Take me home tonight, not wasting any time.
Alright, I'm gonna hit the mic in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Fun.
What are you doing?
I heard the countdown.
Alright, did you?
Yeah.
Really?
The mic
Whoops.
was on.
Alright, the mic was on. Alright. Yeah, welcome to What Are the Odds? With Barnes and Baris. I'm one half, Rich Baris, the People's Pundit. Thanks for joining us today. Robert's going to join us soon. We have some clips to go over. We have some polling. It's early, but I definitely can read and, some into it. peoplespundit.locals.com. You'll get it first. All right, but look, I'm trying to make light of the situation here, but President... Oh, by the way, yes, we are newly liberated. Smuggled across the wall. Liberated from the Eastern Digital Bloc, now occupied by the Fourth Reich. All right, we're a blend of commie and Nazi. All right, President Joe Biden has managed to do something that not even Barack Obama, I think, not only wouldn't do, but could not do. Joe Biden has lost the longest war in the history of the United States, and he has done so only months after assuming an office occupied by his predecessor, who was moments away from negotiating a peaceful end to this conflict, something that the Max Boots and the Jonah Goldbergs and the Frenchies and the rest of these fake conservatives had criticized him for, now realigned with the neoliberal police state. How dumb do Jim Mattis and Willy Wonka look now, the Joint Chiefs? How stupid do these two look? Because I got to tell you guys, if you don't know this story, it was the spring, it was April of 2018 when all hell really broke loose between Trump and his loyalists and the deep state, whatever you want to call them. The DC foreign policy establishment, of which the media, obviously now the Democratic Party, and large swaths of the Republican Party either belong to or adhere to because they're afraid of them. That was it. That was the month when he called everybody in the Situation Room and he said, no more covert warfare in Syria. It's over. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. It's over, CIA. It's over. Mattis, tell whoever you got, it's over. We all know that you're publicly telling the country this is a humanitarian effort. We want to stop chemical attacks. Blah, 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 blah. We know you're trying to do regime change behind my back. I'm the President of the United States. Shut it down. They lost their you-know-what. And he said, if that makes you unhappy, then wait until you get this next bit of, this next order.
Thank you.
Start making plans for Afghanistan. Because I promised the country I would end this conflict. And that's going to happen. He was constantly, listen, the diplomatic team was constantly fighting off sabotage. And yet he still made the progress that he made. The goal of the Trump administration, and this is why, Robert and I were so hard on Biden. Yes, it was great that he wanted to keep his promise, but he needed to stick with the timetable that the United States had given the Taliban for the last 2 years. 2.5 years. For those who don't know how Afghanistan works, there is a fighting season. And you want to get this all settled before the fighting season begins. You don't want the Taliban running through Kabul, killing people, and storming the palace. You don't want Afghanis that we now have betrayed, again, because we're really good at doing that. You don't want them hugging the side of a C-130 as it's trying to take off, because they feel that falling to their death from the side of an aircraft is a more humane way to die than if they get caught by the Taliban. God help that woman who opened up a salon in Kabul. All right, let's, I was going to wait for Robert. We got a couple of these, and I can always play them again. This will, if this doesn't remind you of something, I'm going to refresh your memory. Here we go. Roll. Probably wind up playing that again when Robert comes in. Yeah, it is. Probably wind up playing that again when Robert comes in, but you get the gist, right? You get the gist. And there's another one too. There's more. All right. So we will show that, but as of right now, I don't see much of a point to keep going here. I think we all get the idea, right? We all get the idea. All right. Let me. There you go, Laura. That should do it, actually. All right. So there are a couple things we can glance from the polling, and we'll tie this all in together when I come back. But I will say this: Afghanistan was not somewhere where we were ever going to democratize. The troops had to come home. There was a right way to do it, as always, and there was a wrong way to do it. And if you constantly go back on your word, it doesn't matter if it's a nation-state actor or a group like the Taliban, who, by the way, once was a nation-state, or the leaders of a nation-state. you're not going to get the outcome that you desire, because people will eventually just say, to hell with them. But we have now burned another population of people. And since this man took office, there is no denying the result. From the Middle East, from the Jordan River to Eurasia, this is all coming apart. It's just all coming apart. The Abraham Peace Accords, the anticipated agreement with the Taliban, which was done. It was done! It was done. You actually inherited an easy path forward. And you screwed it up. It's incredible. It's an incredible feat. Maybe that's why so many people this month who voted for Joe Biden told us they regret their vote. Joe Biden is going to have, if at all, the narrowest margin he's had in our polling, I think, to date. I'm glancing at it. We'll see. But for some historical perspective here, I'm going to bring in Robert, and then we'll go over, because I don't want to get too much into this without talking to Robert about what we're seeing here. But again, now that we do have him, and I'm going to bring him in here in a second, this should remind you guys of something, okay? It's called Saigon. When the last helicopter, Robert, you're there, right? You can hear me. The last helicopter trying to take off from the embassy with an impossible amount of people trying to get onto the helicopter. Robert, you can hear me, right? I can't, actually.
No.
I can hear him loud and clear. Let me try to bring him in a different way. Yeah, just do me a favor. Send it to him and tell him I can hear him because I can hear his clicking. Just tell him. There you go. Anyway, yeah, we're going to show them different shots, but I want to bring him in because I want to get his take on this and then what we saw. So there has never been, like I said before, look, it's not totally processed yet. So I am always hesitant, folks, to bring people basically into, expect the numbers to change somewhat, all right? They will change somewhat. That's going to happen. Expect that to happen, all right? But at the same time, the bottom line is I can glance at it and I can see. Maybe we could just start in California while we wait, all right? And he still can't hear me? Everybody else can though, right?
I can hear you.
Everybody can hear just fine? All right, just let him know. It's, that he should be able to hear me by now. He's probably just got his thing on mute or something. California. Very much, obviously, this happens all the time. We weight California a little bit differently, and people are going to be like, just tell us what's going on. Larry Elder is definitely ahead in California. All right? There's no doubt about it. He is definitely ahead. It's just, it's not he doesn't have a huge chunk of the vote because it is California. And what is benefiting Republicans, well, I would say Larry Elder because no Republican is really close to him. And the YouTuber who had such huge support in the other poll, Laura, we don't see it. And I said it Friday night, the first day I think was Friday, when we were in the field. And I just basically told him, like, look, the bottom line is here, the bottom line is I don't see what they're seeing. And in USA Today, where they had, I think, Kevin Paffrath ahead a little bit. We have them in single digits. Pretty much low, and we're going to go through it because it's definitely over a little bit too much LA. This happens a lot. The Bay Area. It depends how you weight the Bay Area. Go ahead, if you got something to say.
No, he said he can't hear you.
Yeah, then no kidding.
What I am saying is this. Hit that.
Okay. Yeah, but I turned that off now.
No.
Okay. Well, I don't have to do that. I know what you want me to do. I can just swap it from here. All right. So watch.
Yeah, no, but I want to double check it.
Yeah, I know, but in the interest of time. Can you hear me now? Oh, he just tried to reset it. I saw him just try to reset it. Yeah, but basically, it depends how you weight the Bay Area. Our weighting of the San Francisco Bay Area is much more isolated than everybody else's. All right, so Well, not everybody. That's not true. We just narrow the Bay Area down, whereas some people, there's just no way, if you look at exit polls in California, for us, there has never been a way to break California regionally down into 4 or 5 overall regions and then sticking like the Inland Empire with the Central Valley, right? It's just not, it's not feasible. It's just not feasible. All right, I can hear him now. Can you hear me? He still can't hear me? I can hear him. Ask him if his thing is off. Ask him if he's got it muted or something. Tell him to say something to me.
Still
I thought I
don't
just
hear
heard him
you,
go,
He said still don't hear
Okay. All right. Hold on. Bear with me, folks. Let me just add him completely separate here. All right. All right. And then let me get rid of this. Totally. That would be him right there. Yes. All right. So let me get rid of that. And he still can't hear me now?
Can you hear? He would acknowledge you. He would
No. You can't hear me, Robert? You can't hear me at all? No? All right, hold on. How about now, Robert? No, he can't. That's weird, man. How about now, buddy? No. He must be, it's got to be on his computer. No, it's got, if everybody else can hear me, you should be able to hear it coming out.
I think your microphone is not live. I think that microphone.
I turned that off already. It's that, I swapped it. I did both.
You did swap?
Yes, I swapped it. It's just, look, there's input. How about now, buddy? He can't hear. And you can see us going. I don't know. He must, I don't know. How about now? Now? I'm just going through all the different ones. But no, it's clearly, I don't know. It's got to be something on his end. Can he talk? Tell him to say something. See if I can hear him. I don't want to beat him up here forever, but I mean, that's audio system audio. Yeah, man, I hear him. I hear him just fine. So could everybody else, right? You all just heard Robert, right?
No.
Give him a sec. You couldn't hear him.
No, I heard him through your headphones.
You couldn't hear him. Really? That's odd. Yeah. I don't know. You want to mess with this while I try to do, while I try to talk to people here? I don't want to keep them, waiting on hold.
This is why I want your computer.
Yeah, well, knock yourself out. Knock yourself out on it. All right. While she's doing this, let me pull something up from Callie. Let's start with Callie because I really want Robert's take on the National.
But you have it
All right.
over here. So
it's not though. That's preview live. Preview live. All right. Can you hear me, Robert? Told you.
What if you do it through the earbuds? Maybe the headphone feed is.
I doubt it, but I'll try it just for you. There's the Bluetooth. Bear with us, folks. There's that. It's not probably going to be it, but I'll
I'm
try.
trying to do the output input here. See.
How about now, Robert? No. And everybody can hear me just fine, right?
Yeah, but nobody. I can hear you crystal clear, and then you can hear Robert.
Yeah, I hear him.
Everybody's saying they're with you, Rich. So don't.
Show volume and yep. I mean, I'm telling you. Let me just see. Nothing stupid, right?
Is it the video that did it?
I just heard. You guys can't hear him just say check. He just said check one time. I wonder if I put him live, if he'll come on. I'll try to put him live. When he comes back on, I'll try to put him live. And then maybe everybody else will be able to hear him just fine. You know what I mean? But I got to take this off. He's going to pop back on. And when he does, I'll try to bring him on. But you guys may not be able to hear him. All right? So just keep that in mind. All right? There, watch. Let's just try this. Can you hear me at all? You can't
Can you
hear?
me?
I can hear you.
You can hear me.
Yup.
I just
But
can't
I
hear
can't
you.
hear him.
Oh no, man.
Everybody can.
Can they hear
maybe
Robert?
send me another
Nobody
link.
can hear Robert. You can hear each other.
Okay. All right. So nobody can hear. Yeah, Robert.
Oh,
let's
wait.
do that. Wait.
Say something.
Yeah, say something,
There you
Robert.
are.
Let's just test whether or not.
No, I can hear him.
I'm telling you, you're driving me
Can't
nuts.
hear
It's
anything
on his end. You're killing me. They can hear him.
I hear him
People hear you.
now.
Yep. People hear him. You can't figure it
There
out.
we go.
I can take you
Tell
out
him, say
until
something.
say something. Let's see if people can hear you. I don't know if you can hear me. One second.
Maybe,
Okay, good.
okay.
Go ahead. Speak.
I
Speak.
hear
Okay.
Robert.
Maybe try another link.
I hear
Yeah.
him.
Let's try to give him another link. All right. Tell them. I don't know. Maybe he can't hear me, but tell them that they can tell him that they can hear him.
No,
Okay.
we hear him now.
I know, but he can't hear me, and he's got to be able to. So let me just get another link.
Oh.
1 second, Robert. 1 second. All right. Let's get another link. Disconnect it, and send him another one. All right. Start another session. Totally all together. Let's see if this will work. All right. I really want to keep him in the loop here. Hold on. All right. So yeah. In the meantime, it's hard to give exact. It's hard to give you guys exact numbers, but you can clearly see that I don't know where people got. Certain pollster got this 20-something% lead for a certain Democratic candidate. I will just say this: we got a little bit of a suspicious support number for a certain candidate, but I suspect it's how you lay out these names to people who are taking these surveys, okay? And what do I mean by that? I mean that, let me see if I do this. I mean that, let's do live. There we go. I'm just trying something a little bit different. I mean that this is a very large ballot. And I'm not sure, I did look at how a couple other pollsters put it out there, but it does look like other pollsters just gave respondents the choice between people who are getting the most media attention. And we very much believe that you have to mimic the ballot as much as possible. And in California, they are broken down. They're broken down by, you have the Democratic candidates first. They'll be in alphabetical order. And then you'll have Republicans, Libertarians, or Green Libertarians, whatever it may be. Each of those groups will be in alphabetical order, okay? That's the way we did it, and they'll have what's called a ballot designation underneath their name, and it's either italicized or in parentheses. So Larry Elder, radio personality or whatever it may be, media personnel, whatever his specific designation was. Helen, whatever her name is, educator or teacher, or, you know what? Let me bring it up real quick. Okay, so by the way, great, whoever suggested to ask specifically what the problem is with cost of living. If you chose cost of living as the number one issue, whoever said that was incredibly brilliant, because when we broke it down, and I'm so glad, this is why I love shooting it with you guys over this stuff. We asked gas prices, state and local taxes, housing prices, rising inflation, and healthcare costs. This may be the election, an election where healthcare is the weakest I have seen it in a long time. And I gotta tell you, I'm really shocked. Robert, can you still hear me, buddy, or no?
He looked up.
You can hear me now. All right. So let me bring in Robert. All right. I don't know how much of that you were hearing, Robert, and we can talk about Afghanistan in a second too. I definitely want to go back to that. But Larry Elder is definitely in the lead. There's no doubt about that. It's just this is what's helping him. There's a huge amount of undecided, like 20% still. And there's a huge amount of people who say, I'm not going to vote because then I'm condoning this recall. So Democrats are like, let me get the number for you. And this is the raw, without waiting regionally yet. Because you get the option to leave it blank. All right. And that's how we said it. We found with the, what was it, the LA Times poll? Who was that poll that came out a little bit ago? It was
YouGov.
no, before that.
Oh, Berkeley.
Berkeley. We found pretty much what UC Berkeley found, which is that 24% of Gavin's supporters are like, I'm leaving it blank. Well, go ahead. I don't know what to tell you. That's a problem because now here's Larry Elder with like 20%, and I gotta wait. So who knows what it comes out to, But let's say he's got 1 in 5. Kevin Paffrath, so Survey USA, man. I don't know where they got that from. We got Kevin Paffrath in the low single digits. So I don't know. I mean, it's a big jump, man, between 27 and 5%. 4%. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Where'd that come from? Because it ain't here.
I mean, yeah, I think if at this point, given that Newsom's message has been not to vote on the second part of the ballot, that as if the recall wins, Elder is highly likely to win that, to be the top vote getter, even though there's only one Democrat on that list. So, theoretically, that one no-name Democrat would win if the people that were for Newsom turned around and at least voted on the second part of the ballot. But it looks like many of them are not going to.
Holly Bade. And I seriously think we've done a lot of research on this. So a lot of people, when you have massive ballots like this, then that first, whoever's listed first, man, gets like a certain chunk of the vote. Even, it's not a lot, but, maybe it's 1 to 3%, depending on whose research you're looking at. 1 to 3% of the vote that they never would have gotten. The fact is they were just there. And nobody knows who the hell these people are. So they're just like, whatever, I'm a Democrat, and I'm going to check because Democrats come first on the ballot. So what I think is happening is when you present it to them like this, which is how they will be presented by the state, when you present it to them like this, they're just like, whatever, the first one. So she's at like 5.5% or something. I mean, that's where she's at. I mean, I don't really, nobody else is even close. John Cox is, I mean, this is, again, remember folks, this is raw, but we're looking at like 5%. John Cox would do good, just get the hell out of the race and let Larry Elder consolidate this vote. All you Democrats, Doug Ossie, or however you say your name, you know what I'm looking at is true. You are not competitive. There is no way to catch Larry Elder. Just get the hell out. And just tell people, you know what, I'm backing away. Even if your name is still on the ballot. I mean, if you care, Robert, if they care about not just party, their state, because they believe their party is the better vision, so that means you believe Larry Elder would have a better vision than Gavin Newsom, right? So what are you doing? You're not attracting Democratic votes.
You know who would have won had he run?
Yeah.
Because he would have increased the no vote. The yes vote for recall.
Yeah.
And his name would have dominated by far. Bobby Kennedy Jr. could have been the governor of California.
He could have been.
That's what's showing up now. There's no doubt about it. I don't think he wants to re-engage in that aspect of electoral politics, but it would have had a great story. The place where his father's was assassinated. He comes back and wins the governorship. And then he would immediately reverse all vaccine mandates. He would have reversed all lockdowns, would have reversed all mask mandates. And Democrats would have been totally confused and conflicted, not knowing what to do. It would have been a lot of fun. But good. I hope Larry Elder pulls it off. It's clearly going to be tight.
It is.
The intensity. Everybody now is showing the same thing. That not a surprise. The intensity is all on the recall side. The question is, will this mass wave of mail-in ballots achieve the outcome that it achieved in November 2020, which was to inflate participation of low-interest voters who might be reflexively Democratic voters, though they won't know that Newsom is a Democrat. He lost that bid. So I think it just says, do you want to recall Gavin Newsom or not? It doesn't say Gavin Newsom, Democrat or not.
No, it says, do you want, vote yes to recall and remove Governor Gavin Newsom from office? That's what it will say. And what's funny, we have been talking about that group, and people are like, Rich, this doesn't make sense. I get this a lot from people. They heard us say this. Like, this doesn't make sense. Democrats are going to benefit from a higher turnout. It's a blue state. It depends who, folks, the people who are super liberal and are going to keep Gavin, they're going to vote anyway. That's what Robert and I are trying to tell you. The disaffected working Democrats who would vote to remove him, if you, and I'm going to give people the results, Robert, showing them this. So if you're between 30 and 50% likely to vote, when I add you to the pie, which is not a highly likely voter at all. It's a low participation voter. They don't never vote, but they don't vote all the time, like in elections like this. If they come out, it'll tighten the race another 2-3 points. I mean, that's how much of an impact this can have. Certain to vote is actually it's less competitive. So just certain, yeah, Republicans are more certain than Democrats, but there are a lot more Democrats, guys. It's just what Emerson is finding. Even the independent vote swinging badly against him. Republicans are going to need those added people, Robert. They are, unless maybe not. Look, sampling error is 3%. It's maybe that's just the way it swings. But if I was team recall, I was running that puppy, I'd be knocking on doors, mask mandate or not. You got to get these people out there, or get them to mail in their vote.
I mean, what you have is a lot of working class independents who voted for Biden,
Yep,
still approve of Biden, are voting for recall, and
about
that's the
30%.
problem he has. He needs those working class independents to not turn out and get just a big upper middle class Democratic turnout, and to counterbalance the strong Republican turnout, and then he would prevail. But that's where I still am not sure who turns out in the sense of with mail-in voting. If the effect is working class younger voters that are independent, that cuts against him. So that's why it'll be interesting to see how this ultimately cuts one way. But it's going to be right down to the wire, and we'll see if the people that are anti-Newsom are smart enough to push him over the edge with some good, effective campaigning over the next several weeks. Republicans haven't shown that capacity yet, but we'll see if they because he's very vulnerable. I mean, he's really close to pushing him over the edge.
The entire population, voting eligible population. All right, folks, and what I mean by that is the entire registered voter pool plus some, because there always is. His approval is only 54%. It's a very blue state. When you look at the smaller population of people who are going to vote, it's about 58%. That's what we're looking at right now, and that's pretty high for a recall. It could be a lot lower. I'm just saying that's the percentage of people when we combine everybody, Robert, who could turn out. So that's it's not huge. It's midterm. 2018 was a little bit less than that actually, but. Again, it's not exact yet. Wait until I weight it and we'll see. But among those people, how could you not be over 50 or at 50% in a very blue state like this? You're in trouble. You have to be. And there's no other way around it, man. There's no other way. The very first response was a working class man you were just talking about, right, Laura? Mm-hmm. And he was a liberal. He said he told us he was liberal. And he was a Democrat, self-identified as Democrat. And let me just read this to you. This is how he answered every single question, okay? If the recall election were held today, he's certain to vote, by the way. If the recall election were held today, yes, remove him. Are you, then he doesn't get that. A large number of candidates, for people who haven't heard this before, a large number of candidates have filed papers to run for governor, and the recall should yes prevail. They will appear on the ballot in alphabetical order, labeled with a ballot designation and grouped by party as they appear below. Voters may leave this question blank on their ballot, and they'll be instructed, by the way, that they can do so. If the recall election were held today, for whom would you vote to replace Gavin Newsom as governor, or would you leave this blank, right? He chose Larry Elder, which was like Laura and I almost fell out. I'm like, this is the very first, because folks, we always make sure it's like a soft launch and we make sure everything's going all right. And then when we collect about 10%, we just go full bore. So I always I'm superstitious. I don't like to look and track it, but I do look at the first one sometimes just to see how things are going. All right, so he agreed with the statement that strongly agreed with the statement that Gavin Newsom exceeded his authority as governor. He strongly agreed with the statement that Gavin Newsom did not follow his own mandates and restrictions. He somewhat agreed that the recall election was legitimate and justified. And down the line, the point is, Robert, it really did look like a typical Republican response But this guy is like, LA suburbs. He's a liberal Democrat. He's not a Republican. So, and he was age 30 to 44. So working class liberal male.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the West Side, the Bay Area is his core base for Newsom, and then old Democratic loyalist otherwise. But he's underwater in San Diego County, he's underwater in Orange County, underwater in parts of the Central Coast, largely because of economic issues compounded by his lockdown politics, and then of course he's persona non grata in the valleys and the interior.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
I gave some picks out at sportspicks.locals.com, which is going to be where I put up all the sports picks, but also political bets, because Predict It now has a bunch of different odds you can bet on the recall. You can bet on the recall passing. You can bet on Larry Elder. You can bet against Newsom. You can bet against other alternatives to Elder. You can bet on certain counties. So for example, whether for San Diego to vote for the recall is an underdog, and almost every opinion poll shows and other information shows San Diego is going to vote to recall him. That's not what they don't. Your Republican from 10 years ago that may have not liked Trump doesn't like Newsom and doesn't like what's happened over the last year. And combined with a bunch of working class minority voters. I mean, interesting enough, YouGov had they had the same numbers as Emerson. Now, I think their numbers are still wrong. I don't think it's this good.
The overall, you mean, or?
Well, they had the Hispanic vote as split on the recall.
Okay.
And I don't think it's that. I think it's more like 60-40 against recall, but that's still way below the 75-25 number he got elected with. And so but it does show it's more and more numbers that working class Mexican, and then about a third of African American voters, black voters in California, voting to recall him. That's really high. I mean, you're talking about a guy who won over 90% of the black vote when he first won, and now he's going to get maybe 63-65% to So he's in big trouble amongst working class minority voters, and it'll be deeply ironic if the mass mail-in voting leads to a bunch of working class minority voters voting to recall him. that might have skipped the election otherwise. I mean, but now it's like, I don't got to go wait in line. I can print it right here in my home. Now, I think people's concerns about how do you stop fraud in that context? How do you stop Newsom from just printing ballots with all his buddies and pals? Again, there's a right way to do this, and you just look at disparate turnout, disparate voting patterns between like constituencies. You don't do what Mike Lindell did. You don't rely on the people and I like Mike Lindell.
Me too.
But we've been telling him now for what, 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, not to listen to the people he's been listening to. And then his own chief data analyst on the penultimate day of his own symposium says, "Oh yeah, we don't have any evidence of a lot of this stuff. That China stuff, we don't have any evidence of that."
So much.
Like, I mean, how many times do you got to be fooled? I mean, man, that first guy he put up on Monday, somebody had taken him apart months ago, and they just put back up their take apart. They're like, his basic facts are wrong. I mean, these are people that don't understand your model is only as good as the data you put into it. I mean, you know that better than anybody.
Yep, absolutely.
It's bad data entry is why so many of these models, it makes analytics look bad. It makes statistics look bad. It makes polling look bad. When the problem isn't any of those things, the problem is their methods are bad. Their inputs are bad. Their understanding is bad. I mean, comparing the 2010 census to the 2020 election, that's a bad idea out of the gate. As soon as I heard him start talking, I was like, what?
Yeah.
So I mean, this is an ongoing embarrassment. And again, I like Mike Lindell. Don't have anything against Mike Lindell. Great pillows, etc. You can use promo code POSO. So I'll put out a little Jack Poso.
Let the guy use Jack's, right? What do we?
Yeah, exactly.
The guy did, man.
He was great at pushing that, and God bless him. Yeah. But I mean, this is making the election challenges look bad. It doesn't make it look good. It makes it look bad. You put out a $5 million bounty and then you don't allow anybody to show up who could actually get the $5 million bounty. I mean, come on. That's why he's going to have to face a big verdict from Dominion in D.C. I mean, good luck with that. But there are ways to look at this, the ways that we told people to look at this, the ways in part they're doing in Arizona in the audit, the way they're doing in part in Georgia. Get the ballots, check, the ballots should have numbers on them, see if there's unusual results from different they should publish all the ballots. Number one, it's all digital. My understanding, they'll have digitally kept ballots. Number two, now, of course, the other thing with California is how long do you think it's going to take before you even know the recall outcome?
A month.
Yeah. Isn't that
Probably.
insane?
Yeah.
What a crock. What an embarrassment. The most sophisticated state in the union, according to my liberal friends.
And Robert, now that they're able to just
ballots.
now that they're just able to print on their own, I mean, this could take even longer than, a month is when it's like, the final. But man, this could.
The question is how many people are really loyal to Newsom?
Yeah.
Or how much is, Kamala Harris, who, by the way, was at the Naval Observatory this past weekend. And I was like, that's not the only time she's been observing navals.
By the way, she'll be underwater. I don't remember if she was starting to get even or already was underwater last month. I don't know. Maybe the viewers can refresh my memory. I can go back and look at it, but it's not looking good for her. The honeymoon's over.
Popular. But our prediction about Cuomo came true, didn't it? She knifed him and sent him down the river, down the Hudson. And I don't think she wants just Newsom facing a recall did a lot of damage to him. But if Kamala Harris's people, I think, are secretly cheering for him to be recalled. They don't care if Larry Elder's the governor of California. Yeah. It just takes out one of her other key competitors, and it just clears the field, even if she's deeply unpopular.
Why do you think Cuomo caves, man? Like we talked about, they're fighters. I tend to think, I got my own views. Just from what it looks like, they were going to he became a liability and a threat. And once you're like, that's like the double whammy. And you got to go. Though they will use the power of the law against you at that point.
Yeah, no doubt. I'll give her credit. She's not going to get anywhere near the Afghanistan mess. She's like, no, I'm worried about Haiti. I'm busy with Haiti right now. I'd love to get over to Afghanistan, but they haven't even sent me on a trip to Europe yet. So I'm focusing on Haiti. So, she's good at playing the backdoor game, but the problem is she remains a deeply unpopular person and increasing bad blood between the Biden folks and her folks in the White House. So it shouldn't be a big surprise that Afghanistan turned out the way it did. This is it was always going to go this way. But what shocked me when Biden made this statement a month ago or so that this will not be the second fall of Saigon because there's a great Afghan army there. And I don't know if you've seen the image. Remember the image of the Afghan army? They couldn't even do jumping jacks together. They couldn't organize jumping jacks. And then they were going to fight the Taliban? You got to be kidding me. They couldn't. And now, the rule is, I guess Joe Biden, maybe he's like some form of dyslexic or something.
Yeah.
The four standards are supposed to be, first you get rid of your secrets. Then you move out your civilian targets and other high-risk categories. Then you get your weapons out. Then you get your soldiers out. You don't start by getting your soldiers out because then the other three are screwed. And they're going to have U.S. weapons. They're going to have drones.
Yep,
they're going to have airplanes.
That's
they're going to have bombs.
This was a catastrophe, Robert. This was a catastrophe. And
completely. This is worse than Saigon. This is worse than Batista. It's a lot like the end of The Godfather or Godfather 2 with, there it is. And can you imagine they got the same images? They got people falling off of planes so desperate to get out of Afghanistan.
Let me play it. You ready? Because I started to play it at the beginning. And then I was like, no, I'm going to wait for Robert for this segment. Folks, keep this image in your head. You're right, Robert. This is worse. Let's roll it here. This is worse. I mean, you know,
I guess the Afghani educational system didn't teach about airplanes, that
you
you
know,
can't write on the outside of them.
Robert,
That
they
doesn't work.
obviously think that
I mean,
death is going to be better for them than the death that they got from the Taliban coming
that's
because
probably what that guy was thinking. He was like, "Screw it, I'll die dropped off a plane. That's still better than getting my head chopped off on local TV."
I was
I
just,
mean,
yeah,
can you make
exactly.
there's actually like media personalities saying, "Oh, you don't have to worry about the Taliban. They know they have to treat women and other people well because the world is watching."
Yeah,
And
okay.
it's like, what world have you been watching?
This is
I mean,
incredible.
it's like that Vice interviewer who's like, "Well, will you allow women to vote and run for office?"
I know.
And the Taliban people just start laughing. The guys take off the camera, take off the camera. I mean, where do these people live? And amazing that I mean, this is going to be, and the other thing is who prepared for it. China and Russia prepared for it. Now, Russia was never going to get in with the Afghanis, well, for obvious reasons. The Taliban drove them out. But China wants a twofer. If they can cut a deal with Afghanistan, they have another ally. They have access to oil. They get to do what they want with the opium, keep it out of China, distribute it elsewhere. But also, they could help solve their Uyghur problem in their minds, because a lot of the Uyghurs were the more radical Uyghurs over the last 20 years were trained in Afghanistan before they went to the ISIS caliphate. And the Afghanis could help them solve their Uyghur problem. And so so it'd be a perfect twofer for China, and China's all ready to recognize the Taliban Afghani
Absolutely
government.
smart. Absolutely.
Yep.
Wouldn't you if you were them? You'd line
Of course,
right up
it's
to
a
do it.
brilliant move on the
Yeah.
Chinese part. Tactically brilliant. And Biden just walked right into it because
He's such an
he
idiot,
still
man. I
has.
can't keep it in anymore. He's an idiot. I mean,
Yes, but
he's
you know what it
unbelievably
reflects?
stupid.
It's that old Arabist influence that goes all the way back to Kermit Roosevelt, who helped set up all the CIA shops through the
Yeah.
Middle East.
Yeah.
All these people have this Arabist imaginary view of the Islamic world
Yeah.
that just isn't real. It's not rooted in reality. That's why they didn't think the Shah would come to power in 19. They were telling Carter a month before the Shah came to power that there was no problem letting the Shah come back to Iran. It was all going to be just fine. And that even if he got power, he'd probably want to establish a liberal democracy. Because, I mean, the Shah had been feeding those lies to them for like 15 years. It's like, why don't you read the other stuff the Shah writes to his own constituents? I mean, the Shah was enraged in the 1960s. What made him a political guy, political activist, aside from the fact his father was a revolutionary.
Yeah,
too,
his dad. Yeah.
but was that they wanted to give women the right to vote. I mean, that's what enraged him. It's like, that guy's going to be a liberal democratic leader? And so it's the same Arabist mindset that told Obama, and that Obama was deeply, deeply infected by.
The
He
Northern
really thought
Alliance.
the Arab Spring was going to bring, peace and freedom and liberal democracy to Afghanistan, to Iraq, to Iran,
Yeah.
to Egypt, to Tunisia, to Syria, to Libya, to Lebanon. And, the Tunisian government has now finally collapsed. The Egyptian government and Muslim Brotherhood government, until it got counter coup, took over it. Lebanon's still a disaster. Syria is still a disaster. Libya is still a disaster. Iran is in no better position than they were when all of this started. If anything, America's in a worse position vis-a-vis Iran than when all this started. And, of course, now Afghanistan, the Taliban is going to have more power, more weapons, more money
Than they ever did before,
and more
Robert.
allies than 9/11, 2001.
Yep.
So, I mean,
And
all
that
we've done
was-
is rewarded and empowered them.
The Abraham Accords are ruined and wrecked. All the foundation that Trump, by the way, I had started to say this before you came on, it was Afghanistan, folks. That was the issue when the deep state, whatever you want to call them, the national security state, really turned on Donald Trump. When he told them, Syria's over, Afghanistan's next. That was it. They went ballistic after that, aided by his own Secretary of Defense to stab him in the back. They were constantly sabotaged that delegation to negotiate with the Taliban. And he would constantly tweet, his progress about how he was doing. And nobody in the media that was obviously blacklisted. The story was obviously blacklisted. Nobody cared about the peace talks until they had something big to announce. And that was like 2 major announcements that they made got headlines. Nothing else did. even though they were probably the most important talks since Clinton hosted Arafat. I mean, I'm serious. And it was the longest war in U.S. history. There are 4,000 dead American soldiers, countless others maimed, countless dead civilians, countless maimed civilians, on and on and on. 200,000+ metric tons of opium exported out of that country. And by the way, you can't even save face. Now they're going to have, like you said, they're going to have all our weapons, and they're not. Who's to say this time, Robert, they're going to stop that opium exportation? Now, why? Why would they? They used to back before the invasion, folks. You know how many metric tons of opium was exported out of Afghanistan before the 2001 invasion? 180 metric tons. That's it. It was exported in 17? 9,000. Every year the UN releases that survey. I mean, if you were them, my God, the Americans killed each other. Let them kill themselves. Let them stick needles in their arms and let them have fat Frank Luntz run around telling them that OxyContin's healthy for them. No problem. And then we'll have a really cheap, free product in a bag, in a bundle on the street, ready for them to run to when they can't get their 80s anymore. Yeah, I mean, this is like, and they have guns. And they always had guns, but now, folks, we've been supplying the Afghan security force, whatever you want to call it, for all of these years. They're going to have all of these American-made weapons. It's just, Robert, just an incredible foreign policy screw-up. It really is.
I mean, from the very beginning, we go all the way back.
From the beginning, yeah.
1979, our genius solution to the problem of the Shah's rise in Iran, which our State Department intelligence agencies completely missed on, totally missed on. The CIA helped run Iran from the 1950s to that time period, and they totally missed what was happening and where the problems were. Then Saudi Arabia faces its own terrorism problem, and somebody in the CIA came up with a genius idea. We can destabilize communism and limit the expansionistic approach of Iran by unleashing Sunni terrorism. No longer Shia terrorism, it'll be Sunni terrorism. And how genius this idea was, which unleashed problems all the way up through 9/11 and onward. And then part of the grand part of this strategy was to bring all the most radical, crazy, terroristic Muslims around the world and bring them to Afghanistan. It was
put them in
our American idea to recruit the craziest people. And I mean, that didn't come from...
Put stingers in their hands. Put stingers and RPGs in their hands. That's what we did, folks.
Oh, we trained them. We gave them... So first we recruited them. We gave them a cause.
Yep.
We made sure they could get politically located in Afghanistan.
Yep.
We helped develop the ideology around it. Then we trained them in sabotage. We trained them in arms. We trained them in surveillance. We trained them in how to evade surveillance. We trained them in propaganda techniques. We literally recruited, drafted, armed, and trained the Taliban. And, they aligned with some old tribal warlords who had their own objectives and have had power going back centuries. I mean, they've driven everybody out of Afghanistan if they want to. There was always that history. But we aligned them with the nuts, with the loons. And we trained them, and we funded them, and we armed them. And so they spent a decade taking out the Ruskies. And and remember, before that, it wasn't like Afghanistan was a disastrous country. It was a relatively stable country that was aligned with the Soviet Union.
Right.
But the Soviet Union misread the politics, went in and replaced somebody, and they triggered everything that led to the Taliban in part. But putting that aside, if things were going to fall apart and the Taliban was going to dominate once the Soviets left, there was no reason to believe anybody but the Taliban would dominate after 9/11 or any other time period. They run the country throughout the 90s. We decide to blame them for whatever reason for 9/11. Even though, bin Laden at that point was not in Afghanistan anymore. All evidence was he'd always really
ran across. That's right. Ran over Tora Bora quick right away, Robert. Right away.
Exactly.
I mean, the CIA knew they missed him.
Waiting for the porn a week and the wife a month to come in.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what bin Laden was up to. So the living with all the elite. I mean, all the Pakistani generals all around him. They had no idea that bin Laden was there. Who do you think put bin Laden there?
It's like they're Langley. I'm serious, folks. It's like the mixture of their West Point and Langley. If we put West Point and Langley in one place, That is where bin Laden was living in the equivalent in Pakistan. And yeah, I mean, they knew they had maybe a very short and brief window to stop him from crossing over that mountain range and into Pakistan. They were well aware they had missed it. They just decided, while we're here, let's run around and execute these people. This will be awesome. And that is what the CIA did for the first 3 months until the Spear came in, the first ODA came in. And yeah, and what was their grand scheme, Robert? What did they tell everyone in the Army? What did they tell us? Listen, we're going to hook up with these great group of guys. They're called the Northern Alliance. And then there were all these offshoots of these groups, the Northern Alliance. They were all fanatics, all freaking crazy fanatics. I mean, it's like, and they've been doing it, this misunderstanding of the entire region and the people from the jump. And then he was, by the way, the leader was the strongest leader was assassinated.
We knew within a year that there was no chance of rebuilding anything. We should have known because we'd been there and helped destabilize it in the first place and put Taliban in power in the first place. And we just pretended. I mean, that's why there's been these satirical movies made about this.
Thank you, Charlie Wilson.
Was in one. James Gandolfini was in one about the insane nonsense you have to convince yourself of. I mean, it was all just one big grift. I mean, it was basically a bunch of it was money laundering. Yeah. I mean, I'll give the president credit. As soon as things started falling, it was like time to get on the plane to Switzerland and cash in. I mean, that's who the Afghani president was. He wasn't building schools and building roads and building community.
No, man.
It was one who could get on the grift. And as soon as the Taliban comes, okay, time to get out of here before everybody else figures out, that it's sunk. And then you got people hanging out in the presidential palace with the Taliban, like a bad movie, like some weird parody. And, one of them, of course, spent several years in Guantanamo. So I'm sure he has very warm feelings towards the United States. And and why is he there? Because Obama released him. Because Obama was sure, he'll be better now. He'll be all good. He'll
recidivism rate's awful low, now. Actually. It's an awfully low recidivism rate. And yeah, I mean, what you were saying before too, which is the reason why this needs to be orderly. And the media, they're going to cover this totally different. Oh, they know they can't hurt these people. They will hurt these people. And this is how this will go. If you were I was just talking to I'm not going to say his name or allude to who he is, but we were just comparing certain stories. And for instance, a translator. If you were a translator a week ago for the United States, you're going to be executed. Right now. You're probably you'll be executed right now if you're not on the run. I mean, this is
a lot of those guys should have known to get out of Dodge as soon as Biden announced it. So, it's like some of them.
But this should have been orderly, Robert.
They just believe Biden. He was like, oh, everything's going to. No, of course everything's not going to be fine. The thing's going to collapse overnight. That's why it always get out early and have an exit plan early. That's a universal rule. But you know what they're going to use this as a pretext for? They're going to bring 100,000 or more Afghans to America to live next to you. And don't worry that they're good and reliable and trust.
Absolutely.
There won't be any terrorists or criminals in that group. Even though one of the very first things the Taliban did, open up the prisons and they let everybody go. Does anybody think it was only Taliban that were in some of those prisons?
Yeah.
I mean, and you don't think some of those people are going to think Muriel Boat Lift Part 2, Scarface the sequel? I was for you guys all along. Can you send me on a nice plane to America?
Right. We never learn, Robert. We never learn. And it's like, it goes through the realm of, political discourse, media coverage. Then it gets mocked in pop culture. How dumb, how stupid could you be? I will say, because I was going over when this started to happen, and the first thing I'm thinking about is, my God, all those guns, all those people. That's what you think about, because this was part of one of the sticking point in Trump's negotiations, which was that, he really didn't want all of the U.S., and that's Trump, textbook Trump. I'm not going to give everything the U.S. paid for to the Taliban. I'm not doing it. And that was one of Trump's big sticking points. I mean, he was, by all accounts, a few months away from having this thing wrapped up right, Robert, where it could have been orderly, no panicking, no attempts to jump on a C-130 as it's going down the damn runway. I mean, and by the way, no resource. or at least minimal. There's not going to be none. I think it's naive to say there's none, but minimal resources that won't be used later to kill us. Like we left the stingers and the RPGs behind later to kill us. 20 years later, thanks Charlie Wilson. You know what I mean? And it goes through the realm of, like I said, it's like starts in, obviously it's political discussion, coverage in the media. Then the world has a way of ironing it out, and reality wins, and people come around, and they realize, that was pretty dumb. And then it gets mocked by culture, pop culture. It gets mocked in movies like this, and then we just come full circle and we do the same dumb, all over again. It's ridiculous. By the way, think about all the rhetoric against people like Rand Paul all of these years. This is how it ends, mind you. This is how it ends. And all the rhetoric against Rand Paul, that there would be, have to be some kind of responsible way of doing this. Is this what Mark Milley, that cheese of a man, is this what he had in mind? Come on. James Mattis, when you blew your gasket and ran to CNN because Donald Trump told you in April 2018 you had to get the hell out of Afghanistan, is this what you had in mind? Get out of here. Get out of here, Robert. Come on.
20 years, $1 trillion of American taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
Thousands of American lives lost. Tens of thousands injured. Hundreds of thousands potentially with a range of psychological and other issues because of what took place there and what transpired there. Massive explosion in the opium trade. And the
how
Taliban
many
has
lives
more power, more weapons, more money than they did to start with.
How many lives? I mean, it's almost uncountable, Robert. How many lives? I mean, we can always go through typical casualty counts, injured, dead, psychologically damaged. We can always go through those typical, estimates, but it's almost uncountable. How many heroin addicts? How many families did we destroy because of heroin addicts? The Afghanistan war was Big Pharma's best friend. I mean, it was the best thing that could have happened to them. It came right along with the opioid scourge. That and now we have synthetics are a problem now, but are going to. I think that's the future of this. But I mean, they really couldn't have asked. I'm not a fan of coincidences, man. You really couldn't ask for a better timeline if you're a drug pusher, whether you're a legal or illegal drug pusher. You couldn't have asked for the government to do anything dumber. That would have benefited you any more than what they did. And by the way, foreign policy. Strongly approve, 18%. That's the raw, by the way. 18%. And I wanted to ask people this time because, we've been doing some other projects about their 2020 vote. And I told, I'm a big believer people lie, man. I am. And I don't like it. But just to play the little game everybody else played, let's play this game. All right? How many people who voted for Joe Biden are thrilled with Joe Biden right now? The fact is, they're about split, and nowhere are they strongly in favor of him over somewhat. I mean, that's just not good, man. I mean, he says no, he has nothing. He's got no base, man. No base whatsoever. Overall, immigration is 15.1% strongly. Crime is 15.7%. He's underwater on the economy again. I could just tell you off the bat, he'll be slightly above water with the coronavirus, man. That's it. Slightly. That's how bad this is now. I can't wait to crunch it. I just can't wait.
Interestingly enough, another predicted betting option that I put out picks for at sportspicks.locals.com was you can now bet on the weekly job approval average for Biden each week on either the Real Clear Politics average or they have the 538 average. I don't know why anybody would mess around with that because they're unreliable and untrustworthy. Totally. I have, there are limitations to RCP, but they're,
but at least they're not fudging it and putting their, at least they're not adding some fake equation to try to input people's house bias on it. What does he call it? I had to explain this to Charlie Kirk the other day. He was like, dude, what is he doing with these things? What does he mean when he adjusts these polls like this? I said, he's telling you what he thinks the pollster's bias is. Rasmussen is 2 Republicans, so I'm just going to adjust this.
Exactly.
No.
Interesting.
Yes.
I mean, people who would have taken the recommendation a couple of weeks ago that Biden would be under 50% would have
Yeah.
made money. And right now, the odds that he'll be under 50% by by August 18th is so by Wednesday, that the RCP average on Wednesday, it's currently trading at 56% that he'll be under 50%. And I think that's still low. I think it's going to be I think it's more like 75 to 80% chance
Yeah, I
that
think we
Biden will
caught it
be
on the way
under
down.
50,
Yeah.
even in the RCP average that includes a lot of media inflated polls.
Yeah, I think what we caught here is even last time we saw we saw it, start where its baseline was, and then the inflation from the vaccine. I think the poll before we caught him declining, and it was just like some really obvious issues where if there was a problem with COVID or something, he'd be in trouble. And now I think we're at the beginning of his. I really do, because this is so different, Robert. All you got to do, if you guys want to know what RCP is going to do, Robert will tell you. If you want to know where their average will be in 2 to 4, all you got to do is look at where we are, and then they all come around a couple weeks later. It's ridiculous. I've been doing this for years. It's predictable at this point.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And key numbers on Afghanistan will be the kind of visual debacle that we never really recovered from Vietnam, from people seeing those images in Saigon.
Right.
It would be a decade and a half before we would go back to any major foreign policy conflict because of the aura of Vietnam that hung over it, particularly the way that it ended. Everything about it was controversial, but the way it ended was a disaster. And you look at people that have gone through these kind of disasters. When you look at, there wasn't a lot of video footage of Batista falling in Cuba in 1959. That's just, Godfather filmed. But it was similar. Everybody running to the airport to get out because they trusted the wrong people again. And then, but people did see all the stuff with Saigon. They never got there, crawling up that ladder, trying to get onto that helicopter to get out of Dodge because Ho Chi Minh's folks were coming in. And now they're, hopping on wings of planes trying to get out of Afghanistan. Footage after footage after footage. The same helicopter. We had the same idea. Biden specifically said, we won't have any helicopters on top of places leaving like Saigon. And then that's exactly what we got. We got that exact imagery.
It's incredible.
You could not have a better visual capturing of incompetence.
Yeah.
Trump put out a funny little Biden should resign, and he shouldn't be bothered by resigning because he really didn't get elected in the first place.
I'm sorry, Donald, I didn't see it.
Classic Trump. But I think this is gonna, now more. It's a foreign policy debacle in the first year, as predicted. That COVID would not hold him up if he went to mandates again, and that's as predicted. That number's dropping like a rock. Wait till a bunch of employees start getting fired because of vaccine mandates, or people can't go to the grocery store or can't see a lot because of, this is going to be already vaccine mandates are right around 50%, even when they inflate the numbers and have the most exaggerated dominance in the media. That number is only going down.
It is going down. And I'm glad you, for those who don't know, Robert, just before we launched that puppy, we were done. We had the final survey ready to go. And I get a couple texts from Robert because then you guys know we had the passport question in there. And he's like, you know what you should do? You should ask people whether they support or oppose allowing. And he gave a couple examples. One was employers being able to fire their employees. I'll just give you guys this. 23% strongly support that. 35% strongly oppose that. It's headed in the other direction. Denying children access to school, less than 1 in 5 strongly support it. Over a third strongly oppose that. So right now, people are not putting coronavirus on the level as they, because of course you guys have children, you got to have certain vaccines before your kids go to school. And I think, look, I'm not going to get into, I'm freshly out of the digital Soviet bloc, so I'm not going to go back in there. So I'm just saying that America does not put it on par with, what are the other ones, Robert? What do you got to get vaccinated for? Pox, polio, right? Or not
Right,
polio
right.
anymore, right?
Measles.
Measles. What is it, Laura? You
got
should know this.
measles, you got
Right.
pox, you have
Measles, pops.
DTaP, which is like
DTaP,
pertussis.
yeah. But
Rubella.
these are all serious diseases for young children. So I think we all, smell what I'm cooking. And with vaccine passports are going to be very, very interesting. I'll tell you, that's going to be, it's going to be funny how it's laid out. And that's why I'm saying, Robert, I'm glad you got me right before it went in the field. Because we asked them, well, do you support vaccine passports? And there are people who say yes, but then when you go down the list of all these other things, they say no. So they don't really understand what the hell the people, the media
Correct.
and the government
And
are talking about. That's the moral of this
the
story.
media's been couching these questions in ridiculous ways.
Ridiculous,
So,
yeah.
and so it's conditioned people to think of it in certain terms. So it's like, are you for making sure somebody has their documentation on them about their vaccinated status
Right.
before they go into certain indoor gatherings where COVID can really spread? But what was amazing to me is even when they asked it that way, they were still only getting approval in the 50s. So that told me when you told them the real consequences, are you for somebody getting fired from their job
Yeah.
solely because they don't want to take a vaccine? That number is going to be in the 20s, in the low 30s. That's just going to be your hardcore upper middle class, professional class Democrat. For almost everybody else, including a lot of African American and Latino working class Democrats, they're going to be like, no, that shouldn't happen. Not for this virus, not with this vaccine, not under these circumstances. So when you lay out the real consequences, should people be allowed to be fired? Should kids be excluded from school? Should people not be allowed to go to funerals or weddings or even visit a loved one on their deathbed in the hospital? People are like, okay, no, we're not for limiting that core
Exactly.
ability.
And I don't know what it was. It wasn't you, right? It was somebody else. Somebody sent me a CNBC link, and it's from some pollster I've never heard of before, from some website I've never heard of before. And the questions were absolutely ridiculous, Robert. I mean, and it said 82% support vaccine passports. I don't know where the hell you could have possibly gotten that number from, because that's just it's nowhere near what we found. Not even close.
That's a question where they ask people, are you in favor of people having access to vaccines?
Yeah.
That's what that really is. That's how people interpret that.
It does matter.
Early on,
right.
whenever the question was asked honestly, it was clear this was not a widely popular idea at all. These invasive mandates. Why Newsom is in trouble. These invasive mandates are not popular, and you can create fake polling and fake results. I mean, it's why the media still can't get. I mean, every other day there's a media piece about how in the world is it close? Oh my God, Newsom could lose.
No kidding.
Because they live in this little tiny echo chamber, like a lot of these employers do, that think only a few wackos have concerns have any objection to a vaccine mandate. And then they're shocked when it's a third of their workforce. And they're shocked with who it is in their workforce.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, Robert, I'm a little bit nervous, and we have time for this too, for sure. These Civil War questions, all right? And I don't, even calling them Civil War questions. We asked about the January 6th, compared it to the national versus DC. I can tell you right now, media did a very good job lying. But in DC, I don't know when you get to a point, man, when you can show, where I don't know what the number is where they have no chance and they're going to be fried. So there is no, let me just say this now, I don't have to wait it. I mean, without even processing the data, I can tell you that roughly 9 out of 10 in DC tell you that they think these people committed acts of sedition, and that they are guilty because we ask about predisposition. It is true that nationally there's more of them than not because people just don't know, but there's a huge chunk of, I don't know. That's what trials are for. They don't have that in DC. In DC, they think they know everything. It's done. It's over. And they would fry these people without a trial. I'm telling you, man, it's ugly. I can't believe it, Frank. I mean, I knew there would be a difference, but I didn't know there'd be like a 40-point difference, Robert. It's bad.
That does not surprise me at all. I mean, it's
I didn't think it'd be that much.
I mean, DC
honestly.
is the peak of of upper middle class, professional class Democrats. I mean, it's not just Democrats; it's professional
Yeah,
class
they're
Democrats,
like, yeah.
and it's government bureaucrats, and these are the people that love the lockdowns, think the lockdowns are popular. These are people who brag about, hey, I'm triple masked and triple vaccinated, and they think that and shows that they're really on top of things.
Yeah.
That's who the idea that they are the lynch mob. Like I said, this
They
is
are,
basically
man.
Birmingham, Alabama, 1960, trying Martin Luther King.
They
And
are
so
the
if we're
lynch
going to have
mob.
any kind of fair justice system, then the only option, it's critical that this data get out and that every January 6th defendant use it to argue for transfer of venue. They cannot get a fair trial in the District of Columbia. That's what this is showing beyond any doubt. Because here you have 90% of the people already convicting them, no presumption of innocence.
None.
And not only that, they're convicting them of crimes they have not been charged with.
Yeah, this is the crazy thing, guys. All right, so we did word this smart, and I was putting that, and the locals community, they saw it, and then I read them your suggestions, and it was funny because I'm trying to put it all into one question, and then you're like, well, I would do it because I said, look, from a legal point of view, man, you got any suggestions? And so we're kicking it around, and you sent me those, and it broke up basically what I was trying to ask, and allowed me to ask another question a totally different way. So basically, from what you have seen, read, or heard, which do you believe most of these protesters to be? Because first I wanted to know whether they thought that the crowd was mostly peaceful, and it was just like a few people who were arrested, or even hundreds, but out of 100,000 people, if 400 people were arrested, is it mostly peaceful or mostly violent? Again, it is pretty close when you include onshore, but not in DC. All right, so that's off the bat. They already think that this was a largely violent mob of people. Okay, and that's number one. From what you've seen, read, or heard, which do you believe those accused of trespassing and obstruction to be? Folks, it's 95% for Iowa. So 95%. Whereas, it's people nationally tell us a little over 60%, it looks like, say probably guilty, but I don't, and then another 15% say they don't know.
60% is a manageable number. Then you can
That's right.
filter out and get 40% that don't presume guilt.
That's right.
90% is unmanageable.
That's not even fair, Robert.
You're just going to get lynched.
You're going to get lynched, right? And then this is right out of Robert's handbook, which was from what you have seen, read, or heard. Do you believe those arrested for January 6th committed the crime of insurrection or sedition? It is 40, almost to the whole number, folks. 40 points more in DC. It's a little over 50 who say nationally, who say that, yeah, I mean, probably, and in DC, it's 95%. So, I mean, this is crazy.
Something they haven't even been charged with.
Nobody's charged with this.
Even the Justice Department recognizes they're not guilty of. This is how bad the bias and the prejudice
94.5%, Robert. And I mean, I didn't weight it yet, but I mean, it's pretty representative already because I only got a small subsample. So
shows. I mean, this information was critical to develop thanks to everybody who helped fund the public polling project.
Absolutely.
Because this was essential. This is what I thought was the case, but we needed to prove it. And none of the lawyers, because lawyers in general badly failed to utilize public opinion polling data. I'll give an example of some people who should have used it. Sidney Powell, Mike Lindell, Rudy Giuliani, because their arguments for transferring the case for venue purposes, I bet you they would have found similar information between what people thought about Powell and Rudy and Lindell about the election, that they have already concluded that Dominion is right and they're wrong. That would be very different than the whole state of Minnesota or the Western District of Texas, where, it wouldn't be probably as severe, probably like a 25, 30-point gap, but it'd still be a big one. But they failed to provide any evidence, and the judge pointed that out, so they lost their venue transfer motion.
Yeah.
Because they didn't give the data and information that they needed. And by the way, it doesn't look great when your whole claim is about whether you gave accurate data, and you can't know how to get accurate data for your own legal motion.
No kidding.
But this is why this information is fundamental and essential for the January 6th defendants, for anybody else facing similar circumstances. You want it for the other police officers in Minnesota in the Chauvin trials. They should be doing this. Compare the Twin Cities versus the rest of the state. I guarantee that gap is 20, 30 points.
Yep.
You know,
and it's not
these
as bad as
lawyers are
DC, but huge.
committing borderline malpractice by not using public opinion polling data from reliable pollsters.
DC looks like the presidential vote, man. I mean, that's how lopsided it is. Could you imagine anywhere being that uniform in thought? I mean, I don't. That kind of thing is foreign to me, man. It really is. Like, I don't think it's healthy at all.
It explains why the government bureaucracies work the way they did under Trump and did under Biden. It shows you why the media operates the way they do, why the think tanks operate the way they do, why the political class thinks the way they do, why all the Republicans are still out of touch with their own party.
Yeah.
90% of them are. You look at the Republicans that are popular on social media: Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert. I may be mispronouncing her last name. You look at, they're almost all new. Matt Gaetz. They're either new, or Thomas Massey, or outside the system. Stay outside of D.C. Rand Paul predicted this was going to happen with Afghanistan.
Sure.
And yet the entire State Department was like, "Oh, what?" Amazing.
Yeah, there's something else I want to get your opinion on too, which is a little scary. All right, so a lot of the locals community wanted to ask us about, and you know me, I'm like, well, I got to get these words right, and I didn't like civil war. I didn't like it. But at the when it came to the one question specifically, the bottom line is that's what we're getting to. Do you think it is likely that the U.S. is headed for, this is the question. How likely is it the United States of America is headed for another civil war or widespread political violence that leads to significant division? All right? And I was trying to say, just without just leaving civil war on the two, just civil war. What do you think? I wanted people to realize we're talking about, this is a big, we're talking about political violence here. That breaks it up, man. I can't believe when we weight this, it's going to go higher, because I can see the regions that are less likely to believe that, and they're a little underrepresented, right? In certain groups, they're a little underrepresented. Man, it's going to be close to 60%. It's going to be around 60% who think either it's very likely or it's somewhat likely. And another maybe 11 or 12 that'll say they're unsure. Damn, Robert. Damn. And here's so that's the basic premise of it. So people think it's likely there will be another civil war. Yet, and then the other follow-up is, do you think that it's likely America can resolve its political differences, or resolve its differences without a political upheaval that results in significant division? It's going to be no, or unlikely, plus like maybe 8. Because it's plus like 5, 6, maybe it'll be around 8. So people don't think it's likely we could stop it. They think it's likely it's going to happen. So then we ask them the logical question: would you support or oppose a separation of the Union meant to avoid violence if it was done through a peaceful political process? It's going to be opposed by like 10, close to it, but about a third are unsure. So America wants to fight, Robert. That's what I read in these numbers. And I'm like, this isn't good. I'm a father. I got 3 children. They want to bang out. This isn't good at all. Nobody wants to resolve their differences in a peaceful political process. Each side generally says, no, this is our damn country. And I'm whatever. Bring it. This is well, that's what it's like. Some people would argue split it to avoid political upheaval. And generally speaking, at least I know there's a big percent who say they're unsure. But generally speaking, oppose looks like it's going to win by like 9 or 10 points. So that means there's a good chunk of people in this country who would rather fight.
Yeah, basically that's supports Tim Pool and Michael Malice, who have been predicting this for some time.
Yeah.
And that's one of the recurrent themes of Tim Pool, that the country is falling apart at the seams. And for Michael Malice, it's been the solution is some kind of divorce. And it shows that there's more and more people who see America in the same way. And it's I don't think either one of those things is going to happen, but it shows the mindset and the mentality. And that's where accelerating things like, you have about a third of the country that's not interested in this vaccine. And some have been willing to take it, but most in that third have not. They're just for various reasons, religious
It
objections.
hasn't budged. It's not going to budge again. I'll tell you right now. We did it
Exactly.
again. It's not going to budge.
And when you start telling them they're going to lose their job, even if they've had their job for 20, 25, 30 years, even if it's a job they sacrificed for to pursue in the first place, like, firefighters, like cops, like soldiers, like other people in that position, nurses in certain cases. And all of a sudden you can't have your job unless the corporation now controls your body and you no longer have medical privacy. You can't go to the grocery store. You can't go to a bar. You can't go to a sports venue. You can't go to an entertainment game. You can't go to a park. Your kid can't go to school. You can't go to college, law school, or grad school, or med school. You can't travel between states. You can't travel outside of the country. All you're going to do is enrage and embitter a lot of people. You're not going to convince them it's the right move. In fact, again, for detailed data on this, you can go to our locals pages, vivabarneslaw.locals.com and peoplespundit.locals.com for detailed information about the medical data we can't talk about on YouTube.
Can't do it. Yeah.
But put it this way. Suffice it to say, the data increasingly shows reasons why the skeptics are skeptical. It's moved in that direction. It's not moved in the direction of more confidence in the safety, efficacy, or necessity of these particular drugs for a lot of people. There's been a public persuasion gap because it turns out censorship is not a smart way to convince people that they're in the right. Censorship generally convinces people they're in the wrong. A lot of the people that have dissident opinions are not persuaded by not allowing their opinions to be debated. So it's that's what's intensifying it. And then add in foreign policy debacles, add in an economy that's not recovering, an economy that's starting to look, what was going to be a V-shaped recovery under Trump has become more like an L-shaped recovery under maybe a U or an L-shaped recovery under Biden. Where things are they're starting to look like Obama years all over again. Very, very stagnant. 7-8 million jobs lost, can't recover. They've won some, delays with delayed it's probably going to be worse for them that they postpone the inevitable on evictions for a couple of months, postpone the inevitable on unemployment supplements and stimulus checks with a couple of lawsuits against Republican governors, that a few of them that won. All they're doing is delaying the inevitable. They're adding up the debt without solving the underlying problem. And then they're going to drive this economy. Like, Reagan made a big gamble in 81 and 82. He let Volcker come in and totally change how the Fed was running policy. And it hurt him in 82, but saved him by 84. He was willing to sacrifice short-term pain for long-term gain. Biden can't do that at all. He's an old school Pole in that respect. He just wants no short-term pain, no short-term pain, no short-term pain economically. And he's just delaying the inevitable. And all that's going to happen is 2022 is going to be a worse year economically now. And so they're going to be running for a midterm they're not going to be able to get their HR 1 bill through, despite Schumer's attempt to sneak it in over midnight.
Yeah.
That shows you how desperate they are and how much they know they're under the gun. The infrastructure bill, which has a lot of issues with it, but it's not going to save them at all economically. It is half of what Trump's infrastructure bill was. So what they did is they took a bunch of money they'd already allocated for various projects, and they stuck it within the infrastructure bill. So a $1.2 trillion package is actually about $500 million of new money, and that's going to be spread over 5 years. So $100 million a year ain't going to boost the economy any.
It's a garbage inflation builder, Robert. That's it. That's all it is. I mean,
exactly. It's a few political payoffs, a little bit of good infrastructure, and some bad regulatory ideas. That's all it is. And so
Yeah.
it's not going to help economically. It's very marginal impact politically. Its problematic aspects have nothing to do with the spending aspects. It's trying to control crypto, trying to institute new things on your car. They basically want mass surveillance in your vehicle. All the little, and then various little port projects for their favorite senator and congressman along the way, so they can stick their name on it and say, look what I did this week.
Just like the
Um,
American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, man. That's all that was too. I mean, it wasn't really an economic plan. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. I mean, but yeah,
so I
people
mean, so
buy
he's
this crap.
yeah, I don't see how, and Harris is so unpopular
Yeah.
that they can't really elevate her anytime soon, because I mean, again, even in California, her own home state, she is less popular than Biden, and Biden is already under where he was on election day, and it's going to keep trending that way. I think he's going to be stuck in Obama kind of job approval without Obama's likability, probably for the rest of his term. And the only question is how long. I mean, if the Democrats were smart, they'd figure out a way to
Cut
take
them
out,
loose.
realize they made a mistake with Harris, remove Harris, put somebody else in the VP position that you think is tolerable and manageable, then push old Joe off the cliff and let the new person in. This has happened
That'd be
before.
rough, though, Robert. Yeah, because they put themselves in this position, so it would be real rough to do that. I mean,
Well,
it'd be hard,
you
especially in short term.
when the deep state did it before. They did it to last time we saw a fall of an airport, like we fall of a country,
Yeah,
like we saw the fall of Saigon, and we just saw
yeah,
the fall of Kabul in Afghanistan.
that's
They did it
true.
so tricky. Oh, Richard Nixon knew that as long as Spiro Agnew was his vice president, ain't nobody impeaching Nixon because nobody wanted President Agnew. And so they
That's
took
true.
out Agnew first, and then they even tried to put in Rockefeller. I mean, that's how brazen they were. And of course, there was too much blowback from the Republican base, so they put in old Warren Commission Congressman Gerald Ford. And as soon as Ford was in there, it was impeachment time for Nixon.
Goodbye, Tricky Dick.
If I was Harris, that's what I'd be watching for now. Now she's taken out two of the people that could have replaced her. And
Yeah, they're
Newsom
running
just
out of
basically
people. They're running
recalling Cuomo getting
Cuomo.
pushed out
Yeah,
the door. I mean, that went almost exactly to bear. The only thing I thought Cuomo would actually force closer to an impeachment vote
me
before
too.
he would leave.
Me
But
too.
apparently they walked in and they told him, "We're impeaching you. We have the votes. You have no." So either we start this process right away and there's more embarrassment and you're done, or you step down now.
It
And
was
that's
the
when he finally was like,
day
"Okay,"
local.
and stepped down.
Yeah, the day local. What is it, Laura? WB? Is it still WB over there? The day the local. I think it's WB 11 or something. The day they ran the story saying, "Look, just spoke to the assemblyman. The head of the assembly says that they are going to tack on if he's basically if he's going to play hardball, they are going to at least maybe not put it as a charge, but that in the hearing, maybe they would have actually, but in the hearing they were definitely going to bring up the nursing home stuff. It would be a peripheral investigation. Things moved very quickly after that became clear I mean, guys, that was a wink toward, what, if we can, because if he's convicted on that, Robert, and they start digging through those paperwork, that paperwork, and then the Justice Department may have not had a damn choice. If they found something that they probably would have likely found, because it's New York and it's Andrew Cuomo, which is a letter somewhere from the head of the health department saying, Governor, I think this is probably unwise. I think we may be infecting the elderly. And he said, well, how many have we infected so far? And they told him a number, and he said, let's just keep that between us. That's what that's Andrew Cuomo all day, and everybody freaking knows it. So the Justice Department would have had a hard time if they did decide, because if you remember, they just said we're not going to charge Cuomo, we're not going to go after Whitmer, we're not going to go after Wolf. They'd have to take down half the Eastern Seaboard. I mean, these blue state governors and two Republican red blue state governors that did the same thing. So, but if there was an impeachment trial, man, what I'm saying is they could have made such pressure on them, they may not have had a choice. And that seems to me like Cuomo realized what time it was. and he got going. Speaking, you brought up Biden does not have the time for economics. He's definitely going to be underwater on the economy again. There's no doubt. And people should remember last poll, the Registered Voter Economic Confidence Index. We got those 5 measures. They were down across the board. Robert, views on current and present employment conditions. Last month, 34.5% positive, which was already terrible, and negative was 32.7, and neutral was 32.8, so almost like a third each way, or a third for negative. That's now up to nearly 4 in 10 negative. Neutral is down because positive is now above 30. So, it's going, like it seems to me, in 2 extreme directions. So, I mean, positive lost about 4.5 points is my point. And that goes with views on current and present business conditions. Last month I was about 28. It looks like it's going to be about 25. I mean, these are small corrections, guys, but over 6 months, you really start to see the damn picture. And we need to do that. This needs to go on a line chart to show people it's just getting more negative.
Yeah.
It's not working, man. The people just got $800. Another $800 for the child tax credit.
For what?
I mean, you'd think they'd be doing cartwheels. Nope.
The other thing is it's bad timing for him. For him to have to fight so hard to get an infrastructure bill done that would end up being, from a monetary perspective, very modest. To what's the probability? Obviously, the election reform is dead. All their efforts to revitalize it is. I mean, Schumer's not doing desperate things like trying to sneak it in after midnight if it had any chance of progress or success. They're going to run into trouble on the infrastructure bill in the House because the Green New Deal people are unhappy about the complete absence of their particular pet projects that were included in. I mean, people remember, folks, this infrastructure bill started out at $6 trillion, so it went down
huge.
by about 90% to get a deal done. And I don't see how the $3.5 trillion budget gets through either, especially with these problems mounting and his political capital dissipating quickly. Afghanistan came at the worst possible time for him. He probably should have stuck to his plan to just delay it forever if this was going to be the outcome.
You're right. Well, if you were going to delay it at all, Robert, this was going to be the outcome because the Taliban were essentially promised something by the Trump administration. And then Biden got in and said, you know what? We're going to belay that for another 4 months maybe, which is not much for Americans, but the Taliban's like, yo, screw you. You're trying to wait till the end of the fighting season. Everybody knows what you're doing. And there's a fight again, guys. There's a fight. Weather comes. It's good weather. They fight. That's it. It's crazy, but it's a fighting season. And they, if you say, I think we're going to wait 4 months, Robert, it sounds very sneaky. You know what I mean? It sounds like you're trying to, get over on them, basically. And, I mean, it's probably because they were. And then come next year, you don't leave. And this is what the U.S. has been doing now for how long? Yeah, that vaccinated. I have no plans to get vaccinated. That's still a quarter. It's going nowhere. By the time that's weighted, it's going to be about a quarter. It's going nowhere, man. I just looked at it.
Speaking of elections, the Canadian Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau, called a snap election in Canada. I always find it fascinating. You get like a month to campaign in all these other countries. But the thing to watch there, is that there's the liberal side and the conservative side. But what's more interesting is that there's only one party that I know of that's opposed to all the crazy lockdowns and mandates in Canada, and it's the originally tiny People's Party of Canada. Only started for the 2019 election. They won 1.5% of the vote back then. The question is, how big does their vote get? Do they get into the high single digits? Maybe even break the low double digits? Because for those who don't know, you have the Liberal Party of Canada, where Trudeau is from. They were not the top party last time. They formed a coalition with other parties. There's the New Democratic Party that's to the left of them, and the Green Party that on most issues is to the left of them. Combined, they got about 55, 56% of the vote in the last election in 2019. The Tories were the top vote getter, but didn't have enough coalition partners. They were about 35% last time. They have made the decision, like the UK, to go along with all these lockdowns, to go along with vaccine mandates, to go along with mask mandates, to go along with school closures, to go along with fines for people just publicly gathering and petitioning their own government in Canada. And the consequence, they thought it would lead to them surging. They've gone down.
Yeah. Yeah.
They've been trending in the high 20s, and I hope they keep going down and pay a big price for this. The People's Party of Canada, who our own Viva Fry is running for parliament in a really lefty district. So he's not looking to be the next.
He's in a very, very liberal riding. Yeah.
There's a way long shot that everything has, as he explained from the get-go, and he has a campaign channel that's just designed to track
That's right.
the campaign. His whole goal throughout has been to popularize and reintroduce Canadians to the People's Party of Canada, because they've been so demonized by the media in Canada. People think they're racist and anti-Semitic and a bunch of things that has absolutely nothing to do with any.
Sound familiar, folks? Right. Sound familiar, folks? I mean, really.
So they're already up. So, if he could get double digits in his district, they voted like 1% for PPC in the past, that's an extraordinary improvement, major inroads. And in places like Canada, where you have all these different parties, multi-party system, they pay attention to anything over 5% of the vote. Anything over 5% of the vote gets the political players' attention, and it signals to them, well, maybe we need to reconsider our policies here or here or here. So the better the People's Party, the big question in the Canadian election is not going to be whether the Liberals win a majority. That will be easy with their coalition part and the size of the lead they have, and the complete failure of the Tories to embrace civil rights and constitutional liberties in Canada. It will be how many people vote for the People's Party of Canada. Can they go from being a very marginal 1% party that nobody can pay attention to and the media can demonize, or do they end up over 5% and people start paying attention? And if that happens, then Viva's campaign will be successful by itself, be successful in rebranding and reintroducing the People's Party of Canada as a civil rights, constitutional rights option in the crazy COVID-19 84 electorate environment that is even worse in Canada than it is in the United States.
It is. And
so
it's rare.
To really watch. We'll see.
It's rare for a party, that's in parliamentary systems that are trying to, whether they're new or they're trying to reestablish, which is what I think is more appropriate here. Sound familiar? They got demonized. It's a real shame, because then, because of how they were painted, Canadians were left with essentially no option, because the conservatives, they make me laugh. I follow them on Twitter. They're hilarious. I mean, claiming that they're the only ones who are against censorship. I have seen and heard floor speeches by leading conservatives who are talking about the need to censor political opponents on Twitter. This person doesn't have a place on social media. That person doesn't have a place on social media. But it's in normal circumstances incredibly hard for these parties to gain traction in these parliamentary systems. But it does happen, and it can. And like you said, that would tell everyone that they did already make an impact. If Viva really does, and that's a very liberal riding, if he does even just a little bit better and the party does a little bit better, it's at least a wink from the public to say, you know what, we do see you over there. You are the only ones. And because I've seen other success stories, Robert. Look at Nigel Farage. He was fringe forever for a very long time. And eventually the conditions can present themselves. They can be the right conditions where the opportunity presents itself and shock everybody, which is, I don't know. We in the West, man, Republicans are the same way as, conservatives in Canada. They're the same as Tories in England. These are not people who really defend your civil or really constitutional rights. They're not. And people don't have a choice in these parties. I think it's tragic, but the lockdowns, they showed us that. That was the time. If 21 years ago, the Patriot Act was the time to show people who really did care about, the Bill of Rights and who didn't. right? Now this is this moment's time. The Constitution doesn't disappear, and the Canadians don't have one like we have one, Robert. They still have a Constitution, and that stuff doesn't disappear when there's a pandemic, man. This doesn't.
Well,
As
the
if the
document
founding,
doesn't become outdated.
as if our forefathers, not just the founding fathers, but people in Britain, people in even France. You kidding me? They have a huge history of revolution for the rights of man or humankind, ladies. Sorry, but we act like these people didn't deal with disease, Robert, or something like we're the first ones to deal with viruses and disease and sickness. It's just nuts. Everything we do these days, we like to make ourselves look like we're special, self-centered. Like we're the first generation have to tackle this problem. It's crazy. It's just not true.
Yeah, I don't know if you have. I sent over some charts of some interesting Ipsos poll, basically on the rise of populism and populist sentiments around the globe.
Oh no, I missed it, but I can grab it. I can grab it.
Yeah. It's amongst the charts. It was fascinating because it's showing how many people.
Yeah, let me get this.
Country after country. It shows, in my view, this is the net effect of all these lockdown policies. It has dramatically increased populist sentiments and sentimentality, especially as it is extended. Places like Australia is on another set of different parts of Australia, another part of lockdowns. They're sending military door to door. They're arresting old people for not wearing their mask correctly. That kind of insanity. Same thing in New Zealand. Same thing in some other, Israel's looking at it. Gibraltar's looking at it. Iceland's looking at it. Even though all those countries have the highest vaccination rates in the world, somehow they need to lock down. People can ask their own questions.
Right.
Yeah,
somehow.
Look at
I had to grab this. This is fantastic. I don't know how the hell I missed that email, but I did. All right, and I needed to get this one. Go ahead, take people through it, because that is some fascinating stuff right there.
So these are basically, it's the populism index asking some core questions of that they recognize properly as a populist sentiment worldwide. And what's interesting is a country toward the bottom is a country that sporadically had high populism, but it's a country that had no lockdowns in Sweden. So you notice the populist sentiments have gone down in Sweden as Sweden's public health authorities did not lock down, did not do mass mandates, did not do vaccine mandates, did not shut down their schools. But here's some of and then it's not a surprise, one of the countries toward the top. This is a very good sign for Orban that Hungary is one of the most populous countries in the world. It's also a reminder as to why the deep state hates Russia, because you see they're in the top 5 in populist sentiments around the world. But you look at and it's just answering basic statements. The main divide in our society is between ordinary citizens and the political and economic elite. That the political and economic elite don't care about hardworking people. That politicians always end up finding ways to protect their privileges. That politicians should be able to say what's on their mind, regardless of what anyone else thinks about their views. In other words, free speech, and they want honest authenticity more than politically calibrated commentary by their elected leaders. And the most important political issue should be decided directly by the people as often as possible, not by elected officials. So these are 5 good statements that reflect populist sentiments, and I think it was fairly asked by Ipsos. And one was that the majority of around the world, a majority of people believe in 3 or more of those statements. So that shows you how broadly shared populism is. Like if you ask these statements inside the District of Columbia, they're going to be like, nope, because they are the elite and they know they are.
Yeah. Right. You're like, whoa,
look at what's number 1 on that list. Chile has not often been number 1 on that list. Chile has experienced severe lockdowns over the last year. So you're seeing it surge in populism. Colombia's had severe lockdowns. It has been sporadically populist, major surge in populism. Now, Hungary and Russia have been populist for a long time. That goes all the way back. The commies tried to borrow populism in the 1880s.
That's right. Yeah, the left has been doing this for.
They failed at it because they went out there and the peasants were like, "We don't want you nerds, go home." But they tried to steal from it. Brazil has always been strong populism. Surge in populism in South Africa, not a big surprise there. Surge of it in Argentina. Poland has always been a strong populist country.
Yeah.
Italy goes back and forth. The fact that it's surging shows a reaction to a lot, in my view, a lot of the lockdown policies.
Laura and I were just talking about that with our son because he wants to go to Italy. And, he's like, Dad, what kind of country is Italy? What do they believe over there? And we were just talking. I said, they swing. Son, they swing. And at this point, that is a sign that they're on the verge of swinging back. Did it shock you that France is below the United States?
Yeah, aspect that the U.S. is sort of right in the middle of the pack, which even though the U.S. has the longest, strongest populist history, what it shows is a lot of other countries around the world. Now, some of these other countries have always had strong populism. Colombia, Russia, Hungary, Brazil, Argentina, in part, going back to the Perón movement, was part populist. It kind of went AWOL in some places, but it got to power by being populism. Don't cry for Mia Vida is, the populist symbol of the first lady there, all of that. But what was surprising, the U.S. being sort of middle of the pack, not a big surprise because these other countries are surging due to rebellion against failed lockdown policies. Like if Cuba, if they could have polled Cuba would now be very high on this list.
That's why I was like a little shocked. France wasn't a little because of what's going on right now. Not in the grand scheme of things. Because I actually think, it just goes back to what you just said. Progressives have been doing that in the United States too for a very long time, which is stealing populism's thunder and mislabeling a populist cause as being progressive. They did it the whole progressive era, and in truth, that was never really true. They just decided, we're outcasts, you're currently an outcast, let's get together, band together, call each other the same thing again, and fight the guilds, kind of thing. That's it. But that didn't mean they really shared much more in common than a supposed claim that they cared about the working class. I mean, that was really it. And the rest of it was really not true. I don't know that it's eugenics is not a populist movement. I don't know where the hell that came from. There was a really big divergence in their views. Let me pull this one up too, because this one goes hand in hand with what you said before, which is, what does the country feel about their current situation? And first of all, why the hell don't we have a populism index? But I digress. All right. What the hell? They should. If anybody should be pulling a populism index, it should be us. But whatever. We have the confidence index. Ipsos system is broken index, and I think this matters quite a bit, right? So what did you think about this? What jumped out at you here? Same people at the top.
Yeah, exactly. Because here's what you're asked whether your economy is rigged to advantage the rich and powerful. Traditional parties in politics don't care about people like me. The number one cue that someone was going to vote for Trump in the Republican primaries in 2016 was a version of that question. Do you think people in power care about people like you? Do you think that you need a strong leader willing to break the rules? That's not always the best. I don't yet, but that shows the system is broken. That's where that mindset comes from. And the strong leader comment to take the country back from the rich and powerful, which is a populist sentiment, but can go the wrong direction if not careful. No. And then the experts don't understand the lives of people like me. That I think is a very good populist unifying question. And what you see is, the U.S. now rises on it, but you're seeing some of the same countries that we saw before, but you're seeing some countries surge. Like they're not covered. Like South Africa's not looking. The South Africans that are upset, they're not looking for sort of neoliberal, neoconservative solutions.
Yeah.
They're not looking for corporate solutions. They're very populist about what's going on in their country. But you're seeing a big surge in Italy. Not a surprise about Russia, Hungary, Mexico. Big surge in Chile. Not a surprise. And in Peru. Peru's and other countries had severe lockdowns. Big surge in populism in Peru. Not a surprise given recent elections there. Colombia and Brazil always been up. But the thing that was surprising to me is how high Japan, France, Spain, Belgium are on this list. Because you wouldn't think they would be this high on the list. It's fascinating. Once again, though, the country that had the least amount of lockdowns, the least amount of imposition on people's lives is the country, Sweden, where the fewest people say the system is broken. So, again, it's Sweden not only handled things differently than everybody and handled it to greater success in dealing with the virus than everybody else by almost every measurable metric. Their choice not to invade their civil liberties of their citizenry, not to impose upon them, not to lock them down,
Yeah.
not to shut down restaurants, bars, public venues, and schools, not to mandate masks and everything else, makes them, at the end of this process, the country that has the highest public confidence in their people. Whereas everybody else has seen, for almost everybody else on this list, this number is higher than it was 2 years ago. The U.S. is right about par for the course of where it was, slightly up. But a lot of other countries throughout the Western world, including countries like Japan, which have not had a history of populism, are seeing these. I mean, the Japanese are extremely deferential. For them to say our system is broken means they mishandled the lockdown policies in response to COVID. The country doesn't have confidence in their leaders, which is extremely rare. Now, also, the Japanese have been on a 20-year experiment with a version of modern monetary theory that hasn't worked in 20 years.
Yeah, it hasn't worked.
And
Definitely
so
not.
it really, there's a global surge in populism, and whoever best taps it over the next election cycles in all of these countries is going to overachieve current expectations.
Yeah, and a little warning for the people on the right who think they're the natural home for these people. Indeed, there is left-wing populism, and Barack Obama, end of story. He was very effective at tapping in to that populist strain. And by the way, that's why we had the twice Obama, Trump voter, right? So the Obama and then those who swapped, because there were some who flipped from Obama in 08 to Romney, they were not nearly enough. Those were professional class people, professional class Republicans, the old school kind of, more educated Republicans who thought that Barack Obama was just like a little too scary for them, a little bit too to the left for them. And they temporarily went back to Mitt Romney until the establishment sold them on the fact that Donald Trump's temper matters more, or temperament, not even temper, because he doesn't really have a temperament, his character, his attitude. It's too crass for your taste, for your neighborhood, right? So that's what changed, right? But that the populist strain was so much larger, and Mitt Romney could not win those voters from Barack Obama. It would have put him over if it did, but he could not. That's how you lose Ohio by 2 points while Donald Trump wins it by 10. I mean, these are people who told us, we voted for Barack Obama 2 times and we voted for Donald Trump. So, people immediately want to think, well, we're the populist party now because of Donald Trump. And I would argue that is not true. You have a big problem, and it is called your own leaders and the old wing of the party pre-Donald Trump. And I don't want to keep everybody forever because I do got to crunch on these numbers, but Robert, let me just give you a couple of these before we go. Where are you,
well,
Kevin
first
McCarthy?
I want to say, Robert, I am Groot.
Did you hear that? She said, I am Groot. That thing was awesome. For the person who was struggling, didn't know what characters to put us all in, Laura was happy to be Groot, all right? She was happy she even got to say, I am Groot. But listen to this. Real quick, last thing before we go. All right. Very favorable. Well, forget about this. Let's stick to congressional candidates. Kamala's not looking so great, but Chuck Schumer. Oh no. Oh my goodness. This is only African Americans, which makes it even worse. Hold on. Let it update. Let it refresh real quick. Okay. Going to the congressional leaders, their favorability ratings, okay? Look, Nancy Pelosi is not very well liked. She's still, once again, it looks like she has the highest, very unfavorable. Only Mitch McConnell is only a few points behind her now. The difference is that 17.2% still have a very favorable opinion of Nancy Pelosi, and 22%, this again has to be weighted, but 22% somewhat, that compares to just 9 and 17 for Kevin McCarthy. Chuck Schumer is vastly, he's not super popular, but he's vastly more popular and more well-liked than Mitch McConnell, who cannot break single digits, Robert, in very favorable. They got to go. If Republicans want to be that party we were just talking about, man, these guys got to go. I'm never going to let this up. I'm going to just keep beating this man like a dead horse, because you can't convince people that you're the different party now. You're the change party. You're the party. Maybe you didn't like Trump's attitude, but you like this message, and we're going to carry that forward. You cannot do it with these chumps at the helm. Can't do it. Can't do it, man. What are your thoughts on that? Cannot convince people
And
to give
smart,
you the Senate.
you know, smart Republicans in the House and the Senate and the state legislature, city council, county commissioner, what they would be doing right now is adding medical status as a protected class along with race and religion and ancestry and gender. That's what they would be clarifying right now. Not only making sure critical race theory is DOA, using it as an opportunity to make sure parents can pick their own schools, not just be
Yeah.
locked into government schools. Those are some remedies that are clearly right on the. They're even more apparent when DeSantis has recommended this. Said if a school imposes a mask mandate, we'll take the taxpayer dollars for that school and give it to you so that
Yep.
you can go to a private school where there is no mask mandate. Start to embrace these obstacles and treat them as opportunities. And they should do the same for the vaccine related issues and COVID related issues. Say
Protect
that your medical
employees.
status,
Yeah.
I mean, the ADA was supposed to do this, but it's
Yeah.
unreliable that the courts will interpret it that way. The regulatory agencies are trying to pretend it doesn't mean what it said it means. So the best way to protect it is pass legislation that says your medical status, including whether or not you're vaccinated and anything about it, cannot be the basis of discrimination unless it meets the same business necessity standards that are generally required for anybody that is discriminated against who's in a protected class. So just expand it, just extend it, just continue it. And it's something that should be, that has a strong appeal amongst Democratic constituencies as well. Again,
Yeah,
it's working class
minorities.
African Americans, working
Yeah.
class Mexican Americans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, etc. So if they were smart, they would jump on this what all of this data shows is the people who jump on populist causes that are that people are really resonant with right now are the ones that are going to overperform and overachieve and sustain themselves politically. So it's just smart politics, not just smart policy, to
Yeah.
do these things. And whoever does it is going to have the best chance. If Democrats stay asleep at the wheel, they could end up like the Tories in Canada and not benefit from it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Wolf in Pennsylvania, if that was a referendum, not just to take away of his emergency powers, but to put him on the back burner, he'd have lost that election by a similar margin. I really do think that's where we're at. All right, folks. Robert, I will send you this when it's all cranked together, and let you review it until you digest it to your heart's content. See what you can get out of it, more as well, because it's a lot, so the more eyes, the better. And of course, locals, you'll have it real soon. Of course, I'm going to work on it right now as soon as we're done. Robert, tell them we know this one, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. That's up already, but remind people about your new locals pages, the betting pages.
So everything about the
Page.
medical data and controversy and lawsuits concerning the vaccine mandates or mask mandates or lockdowns, I'll be going over and reviewing this week and on a go-forward basis at vivabarneslaw.locals.com, as well as election detailed information and some of the polling data that Richard's going to be posting at peoplespundit.locals.com. That's where you can get honest, full information outside the big tech censors. And that's where you can be part of the community and conversation so we can get accurate information out to the public.
Yeah, and folks, once I get it done and crunched and out there, we'll have a live stream about it, and we'll shoot it together. Open up the chat and talk about it, because it's a lot. It's a lot of good stuff here. It really is. As always, Robert, see you next week, my friend. Everybody, thanks for watching, folks, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, right? What am I missing here? Subscribe to the YouTube channel, even though, yes, we have, look, let me just say this real quick. We're going to use YouTube as a small kind of jump off point, right? We like the Morrow model, okay? But I'm not going to change who I am. I'm not going to change what I want to talk about or what I feel is necessary. All right? We're getting now out of the realm of, I don't even know what to call it. This is something even scarier, and I want to have a part in it. You're not going to see me kowtow to it. All right? But, all right, so that's that. What else? So like it, because we'll still be here. hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. But of course, they're not great at doing that, right? So best way to keep in touch is peoplespundit.locals.com. And again, once we're done crunching, I got a lot of work to do as soon as we get over here. When we get it done, we'll live stream it. We'll shoot it. All right? About it. All right, guys. See Locals soon, tomorrow. See the rest of you on Inside the Numbers at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
The lights that shine down over dotted lines of white across an open highway. Restless nights, coffee houses, clubs and neon lights. I brought the people my way, working my way, coming back to you. Working my way, coming back. Take me home tonight, not wasting any time. Highway 95, engines on overdrive. From town to town, and in between, I see you in the morning light. New York, Boston, Philadelphia, LA, I still see your face. Buses roll, distance grows, but I remember you're just a dream away. Working my way, coming back to you. Working my way, coming back. Take me home tonight, not wasting any time. Highway 95, engines on overdrive. From town to town, and in between, I see you in the morning light. Light on as I drive on, singing our song. Keep the light on as I drive on, singing our
I don't know how. Well, I didn't say anything bad.
Look. So look.
Take me home tonight,
Oh, I
not
showed you
wasting any time.
This is what
Highway
you do.
95, engines on overdrive. From town to town, and in between, I see you in the morning light. Take me home tonight, not wasting any time. Highway 95, engines on overdrive. From town to town,
Yeah,
and in
it could. And if you go things over here, that's like whatever is there, and then this one is that. That's the button. Yeah, well, if you could use the deck, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it would be.
Right, guys?